One of my favorite things to teach in first grade is Ruby Bridges, because Ruby Bridges was in first grade when she desegregated schools for the first time. And when we tell the kids, they're so used to hearing, oh, you're little, when you get older you can do it. And I want to teach them that even though you're young, you can still do big things and still be empowered to make changes and make a difference. And here's Ruby Bridges, and this is what she did, even though people yelled at her and they said mean things to her, and kids didn't want to be in the same room as her, and they treated her different. She still did what she thought was right, and she made a huge difference. And then they're like, whoa, I can't believe that happened. And then when I tell them she's alive and how old she is, then that's when their minds are really like, what? She's younger than my grandma. And I'm like, it really wasn't that long ago. Another thing that I've done that I've really liked is I'll start the lesson off and I'll tell them, draw a surgeon. So they draw a surgeon, and I'll be like, okay, draw a firefighter, and they'll draw a firefighter, and then I'll be like, draw an astronaut, and then they'll draw an astronaut, and then I'll be like, okay, raise your hand if you drew a boy firefighter. And there's only ever like 2 or 3 kids that draw a girl firefighter, a girl astronaut, a girl surgeon. It's all about differentiating and modifying things to fit not even more than just a class, like specific students. Because I have some, even if it's like just something like math, I'll teach it to one of my groups different than I'll teach it to another one of my small groups, based off of their personalities and how they think. Because there's always if a kid is confident in what they know, then they're going to take any information you throw it at them and be like, oh, I can do this. But if they're not, and they question themselves internally about everything that they do, they're going to need a lot more support through it. So I was actually telling somebody the other day, in college we had to write like a paper about whether iPads would be beneficial or not beneficial in classroom. Our classroom is now 1-to-1, and it has huge benefits because we use instructional software programs that are differentiated based off of student performance. So it's helping them reach their own individual goals of where they need to be and help them where they're struggling. So that's incredibly beneficial. But all the kids want to do is be on the iPads. So if we have indoor recess or like extra recess time, I don't let them use the iPads. And at first they were like, I want to play this game. And I'd be like, nope. But then like the things that they do when they're away from the iPads and the technology is so much more beneficial than what they get when they're on it so much. I had kids that I gave them a box of cubes to play with. And they're like, what am I supposed to do with these? I'm like, I don't know, figure it out. They made like knockoff Beyblades, those little spinny things that fight each other. They built them out of cubes. And they would like spin them and like see who spins the longest, or like see who's would stay together when they hit. But it's like those opportunities would have been missed if I had just been like, sure, go on the iPad for recess. So I think it's important to have it and utilize it, and they need to know how to use iPads and how to use technology and how to use computers, because that's the world that we live in. But I don't think we should teach them to be so dependent on it. And there are kids that, I don't know if you've seen the videos on Facebook or Twitter where kids get their cell phones taken away, and it's like full-blown meltdown. And you wouldn't think that's a problem with younger kids, but I have had multiple students in my class with cell phones, Apple Watches, where they're calling and texting their parents in the middle of the day. Oh, my mom's here. I gotta go to the front office. She dropped off my backpack. I'm like, how do you know? Oh, she texted me. I'm like, why are you texting? You're 6. You're in school. Mom knows where you are. Like, it's all right. We can disconnect for a little bit. So I think it's important to have balance. There's a lot of research that shows that, especially with younger kids, the more time that they spend on screen, it affects their executive functioning development. It's a correlation, not a causation, of increased ASD diagnosis. when they're on it more. But it's like, I feel I don't have kids, so I can't speak from a parent perspective. But so many times I'll go out to eat, and the first thing they do is put their 2-year-old on an iPad, and it's like we need to teach them how to be a person, how to wait, how to occupy yourself. Teach them how. When we were kids, we would go to a restaurant, they give you a coloring book and you color. 1, you're being creative. 2, you're working on your fine motor skills. Now that's lost, just missed opportunities of something so little as sitting and waiting for your food in a restaurant. When I first started teaching, I always ask the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'd be like, oh, I wanna be a cop, or I wanna be a nurse, or I wanna be a surgeon. Everybody wants to be a YouTuber now. All the kids want to be YouTubers. And if you give them the opportunity and you say, hey, do you want to stay in it and have an indoor recess and play on the iPads, or you want to go outside, they pick the iPads every time. So I've just completely taken that out of the mix. And I mean, first graders like to tattle on everything, but they'll be like, he said my shoes look stupid. And I'm like, all right, well, what'd you tell him? Nothing. All right, so go back and tell them that you didn't like that and it hurt your feelings. They don't know that they can do that. They have missed out on like so many basic social interactions, and then parents, they're like, this kid's bullying my kid, and I'm like, that's not bullying. That's saying something that hurt your kid's feelings, which is always going to happen. At any point in your life, somebody can say something to you and it's going to hurt your feelings. But we need to teach and prepare the kids how to address it and handle it when it happens, and teach them how to do it without parent interaction. And that's the thing about technology, like it makes everybody's life so much easier 90% of the time, but it takes that thinking process that we have to do out. We don't have to think. So we have to work our brain in other ways. In the last lecture, there's a part where he said he gave an assignment to his students and they brought it back, and it was so great that he would have thought they spent the whole semester working on it. And he was talking to a colleague and told him, he's like, what do I do? Like, they knocked it out of the park. He's like, tell them it was a good start. And it made me laugh because that's literally what I do with my kids. They'll bring me something, and I'll a lot of times I want to challenge them in ways and see if they can do it. And I don't know whether or not they can do it, but I tell them I know they can do it. And then when I see what I get back, I'm like, whoa, like towards the end of this year, I told my kids they can research anything they want. Any topic they want. I had kids doing soccer stars. I had kids doing basketball stars. I had kids doing types of flowers, dolphins, animals, plants, like anything that interested them, they could research. And I gave them all a graphic organizer, and we talked about, like, throughout the year we developed how to research appropriately. And we obviously use, they're 6 and 7, so we use like kid sites. There's Kiddle, which is like Google but for kids. And then we use Pebble Go, which is by Capstone, that has a bunch of resources on different topics. So those were the 2 sites that they were allowed to use. And then I told them that they could present their information however they wanted. So they could do a model, they could do a paper, they could do a brochure, they could, and a play. I had 3 kids create a dramatic play where they cast members and made a script to present their information to the class. So however they wanted to do it. And before I gave it to them, I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do this, but I went in and I was like, this is easy. Like, you've been doing this all year. You can do it. It's fine. And sure enough, they blew me out of the water with the ones that made scripts. I told them make one because they wanted to handwrite a script for every kid. I was like, make one, make it neat, and I'll make copies of it for you. They highlighted each person's part and gave that person the script with just their lines highlighted. The kids that did posters, they did these huge, like, elaborate posters with facts and colors, and they were covered in glue and paint and marker, but they just did whatever they wanted. And I think that's more what we need to do in our education system is kind of let them take over it and have us teachers as facilitators. Because even when I was going to school, I'm like, okay, I need a rubric. I need to know exactly what you want. I need to know what to do. And my mindset was, I need to follow the rules. I need it to be this way. And I think we should be teaching kids more. There's no one right or wrong way. It's all about like presenting it in a way that conveys who you are.